was the last time someone on your team came to you upset? Not about a work problem, but about a personal one. Or when did you last smooth over a conflict between two colleagues that had nothing to do with your actual job? Or stayed late because your work wasn't done yet because someone needed to vent this afternoon? If you're a woman in leadership, I'm guessing this happens a lot, maybe even today. And here's what nobody tells you: that invisible work has a name called emotional labor, and it's quietly costing you energy, time, and advancement. I'm Jill Avey, a career success coach, and this is Sister Smart Leadership, the show that explores how women can rise from director to vice president and beyond by fully leaning into their feminine energy as their biggest advantage. Let's get you one step closer to the recognition and promotion you deserve. I've spent years helping women leaders get promoted and lead sustainably. So today we're going to talk about the thing that most leadership books leave out completely. Because when we bring it back to the basics, when we look at why talented, hardworking women stall out, burn out, or get passed over, emotional labor is right there at the center of it. So we're going to unpack all that today. In this episode, you're going to learn what emotional labor actually is and why it falls so unevenly on women leaders. You'll hear what it costs you in real terms: energy, visibility, and career advancement. And I'll walk you through practical strategies to lead with warmth and still protect yourself so that this doesn't drain you dry. By the end, you'll have a completely new lens on some of the work that you've been doing all along and a clear idea of what to do differently starting now. So the term emotional labor was coined by sociologist Arlie Hochschild in 1983. So not that long ago, really. And originally, it referred to the work of managing your own feelings so that others feel comfortable. Flight attendants staying calm with rude passengers, customer service reps smiling through difficult calls. But in the modern workplace, emotional labor goes much further than that. It's the woman who notices when a colleague seems off and checks in. It's the manager who mediates a conflict between two team members, not because HR asked her to do it, but because she could see something and no one else stepped in. It's the leader who makes sure meetings feel psychologically safe, that quieter voices aren't drowned out, and that the new person doesn't feel invisible. This is real work, and it takes real skill and real energy. But here's the kicker: it's almost never counted. Not for your performance review, not for your promotion case, not when leadership is deciding who has executive presence, not when they're thinking about who has what it takes to move up. So what happens? Women spend their bandwidth on this invisible work while their male counterparts use that same time to work on high visibility projects, to develop relationships with senior leaders, to build that strategic reputation that gets you promoted. And this is not a small gap. This is a career gap. And most women that I work with have never even named it. I want to tell you about a leader that I'll call Maya. I bet you know someone just like her in your own company. She was a senior director in a healthcare organization. Brilliant, deeply respected by her team, and exhausted in a way that had become her normal. Maya felt like she was running two jobs. There was a job on her job description, and then there was the other job, the one where she held her team together emotionally. And so she was the person that people came to when they were struggling. She noticed when team dynamics were off and fixed them before they became problems. She managed the morale around the difficult change initiatives, and there were many. She held one-on-ones that stretched into coaching sessions. She was the emotional glue of her entire department. And she took real pride in that because that warmth piece, that was her superpower. But here's what it was costing her. She had almost no time left to be visible to her own senior leaders. Her strategic thinking, and she had so much of it, was happening in her head, not in the rooms where decisions were being made. And she'd been passed over for a VP role in favor of a colleague who, in her own words, does way less for the team, but somehow gets more credit. Does that sound familiar? The three main costs of unmanaged emotional labor are: first, energy depletion. Managing other people's emotions on top of your own work is cognitively and physically taxing. Neuroscience and self-regulation research show that emotional regulation and complex decision-making rely on overlapping cognitive systems in the prefrontal cortex. That's this area right behind your forehead. When those systems are heavily taxed by ongoing emotional regulation, people often show poorer performance on demanding strategic thinking tasks. So in other words, When you're running low, your strategic thinking suffers. And the second thing is visibility gaps. Every hour spent on a visible emotional labor is an hour not spent on visible promotable work. This is the busyness trap showing up in disguise. You're busy, you're working hard, but the work isn't landing where it needs for your advancement. And so third, resentment and burnout. When emotional labor is chronically unrecognized and unreciprocated, it builds resentment. And when resentment builds without a way to address it, burnout follows. This is one of the biggest reasons that women leave leadership roles, not because they couldn't do the job, but because the hidden job became too much. In our SisterSmart program, we work through all of this in step one. We call developing strength and courage with emotional balance, because you can't lead sustainably when you're running on empty. The saboteur work that we do in that first step helps you to see where your instinct to please, to rescue, to keep everyone comfortable is actually your inner critic wearing a helpful leader costume. Now, here's where I want to get nuanced, because I'm not going to tell you to stop being a caring leader. The warmth piece is real and it matters. And research consistently shows that psychological safety, that feeling that your team can take risks and speak up without fear, is one of the strongest predictors of team performance. Google's famous Project Aristotle found it was the number one factor. And your ability to create that environment is genuine leadership strength. The goal is not to stop doing it. The goal is to do it strategically and sustainably. So there's a difference between leading with emotional intelligence and carrying everybody's emotional load yourself. So let me give you an analogy. Think of it like a garden. A good gardener creates the condition for things to grow. She ensures that the soil is healthy and the plants have water and the environment supports life. She doesn't carry every plant on her back. And that's exactly what healthy emotional leadership looks like. You create the conditions, you don't become the conditions. So here's what that looks like practically. When a team member comes to you with an emotional issue, it's okay to listen, it's okay to validate, but your job is not to solve their emotional state for them. A brain-based communication approach, which is step 5 in our program, teaches you to ask powerful questions that help your team member to process their own experience and come to their own solutions. Instead of absorbing their anxiety, you're helping them to build their resilience. Instead of holding all the morale, you're building a team that co-creates that culture. And this is a shift. It's a big one. So let's talk about why this pattern exists in the first place, though, because it's not random. Gender socialization, and we go deep into this in our executive presence work, teaches us from an early age that women are emotional caretakers. We're the ones who smooth things over, notice things, hold space. By the time we get into leadership roles, these behaviors are so automatic that we often don't even recognize that we're doing them. And our organizations, they benefit enormously from this labor without ever putting it on a job description or paying for it. What's more, when women don't provide this emotional caretaking, they're often perceived negatively. Too cold, not a team player, difficult. When men don't provide it, no one notices. That's a double bind and it's real. So how do you nip it in the bud? Your first move is awareness. You have to start noticing when you're doing emotional labor and ask yourself, is this mine to carry? Is this my zone of genius and strategic impact? Or am I doing this because it felt like nobody else would? The second move is boundaries with warmth. And this is a skill. It's not about becoming cold. It's about being clear. You can say, I hear you and I care. And I also need us to find a way to work through this that doesn't sit entirely on my plate. You can stay warm and still redirect. So the third move is to build emotional capacity on your team. One of the most powerful things you can do as a leader is to explicitly develop emotional intelligence skills in the people that you lead. When your team has the tools to manage their own dynamics, you stop being the only one holding that container. And then your fourth move, and this one's huge, is to make your emotional labor visible when it matters. So I'm not talking about complaining. I'm talking about strategic visibility. If you help navigate a difficult team conflict that kept the project on track, that's a leadership result. So learn how to frame that as one and talk about it. This step connects directly to step 4 in our 7-step program, which is creating clarity for your career path. Part of that work that we do is identifying what you're already doing that counts as leadership evidence and making sure that the right people see it. And remember, the second time somebody comes to you with the same problem, it's also okay to ask them if they have a therapist or clergy that they could talk to. And if not, suggest some resources. It's not your job to listen to everyone's problems. And there are professionals out there who do this for a living. They have the training and resources that you can't provide. It's a lot to ask of somebody to spend more than 5 minutes listening, yet people will take hours of our time without thinking about it twice. So I want to come back to Maya. Her shift wasn't about her becoming less caring. It was about her becoming more intentional. She started distinguishing between emotional labor that was strategic, that built trust and developed her team and created psychological safety, versus the emotional labor that just happened to her. She started using brain-based communication tools to coach her team through the challenges instead of absorbing these challenges herself. And she started naming her contributions in leadership conversations, not boasting, but connecting the dots for people. Like the reason that project landed well was because we did this work up front to align the team. And she started protecting some of her energy for the work that would get her to the next level. The strategic thinking, the visibility with senior leaders, building the right relationships. It's this kind of work that gets our clients promoted to VP. And you don't have to lose any of your warmth. You just need to stop letting it be taken for granted. So you win their hearts and minds. That's always good. Winning hearts and minds is different from giving your heart away without reciprocity. The most effective leaders that I know, and I've coached a lot of them, are the ones who have figured out how to be deeply human in how they lead without sacrificing themselves in the process. And that balance is learnable. It takes practice, and it's absolutely within your reach. In this program, we call this sustainable leadership. And it looks like setting clear expectations for what you will and what you won't hold for others, building team rituals that distribute emotional ownership rather than centralizing it, developing a personal strategy for where you invest your relational energy, and being intentional about making your leadership contributions visible to others who need to see them. None of this requires you to become someone who you're not. It actually asks you to become more fully yourself, clearer, stronger, and more in charge of how your gifts are used. So I always like to end each episode with 3 shifts that you can make today. So your first shift is to do a 5-day emotional labor audit. This week, I want you to keep a simple note on your phone. And every time you do something that manages other people's feelings, a difficult conversation you didn't need to have, smoothing over a tension that no one asked you to address, absorbing someone else's stress, write it down. Don't judge it, just notice it. By Friday, you'll have a much clearer picture of where your energy is actually going. And shift 2, practice 1 redirect this week. Next time someone brings you an emotional challenge that's not yours to solve, try asking a powerful question instead of absorbing it. Something like, what do you think would help you most right now? Or what do you need from me in this moment? Just to be heard, or do you want help thinking through options? This one question can change that entire dynamic. And shift 3, name 1 piece of invisible leadership in your next conversation with a senior leader. Just 1, and frame it as a result. I worked through the team on the tension between those 2 functions, and that's the reason why we were able to get that project moving so quickly. Get comfortable with connecting your invisible work to visible outcomes. That's the skill that's going to open up doors for you. Thanks so much for watching. Now I'd love to hear from you. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, of the 3 costs that we talked about, energy depletion, visibility gaps, or burnout, which one of these resonates most for you right now? Let me know in the comments. I read every single comment, and I would love to hear where you're at. And for your next step action, we go deep into the emotional balance work in step 1 of the SisterSmart program and into the brain-based communication skills in step 5. And that will help you to lead your team without carrying them. So if you'd like to hear more about how that works and how the SisterSmart 7-step passport to promotion can support you in that, head over to sistersmart.com and download our free private podcast. The link's in the show notes, and it'll really give you a clear picture of the full framework and some of the incredible client stories that I think are going to hit home for you. And if you're a female leader who wants to make a bigger impact by leading at a higher level in your career, subscribe either on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I'm on a mission to help more women succeed in leadership so our world gets the benefit of what women bring to leadership. And if that's aligned with you, I'd love to have you be part of this community and tune into more episodes on SisterSmart Leadership that will support more success for us all. See you in the next episode. If you're ready to fully lean into your feminine leadership and get promoted from director to vice president and beyond, Hit that subscribe button so you'll get all the episodes to come. And check out the recommended video here to see how women are rising up without playing by the old rules that built these male-dominated industries and systems.